Hey there. On my last video, I spoke about knowing things and true knowledge, right? And I kind of rolled off I used the conspiracy kind of theory realm to say, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy instead, but you'll know nothing and you'll be happy because I feel like the first step of degrading society to be where the elites can take over, et cetera. If you're going to believe in all that, I think you really have to focus on kind of like where we're at with the knowledge of people, right? I mean, there's studies, and I could clip and show it later, but you can look it up yourself. Look up there's an article that says the IQ of the average person is like dropping steadily. They said that most people, I don't know, I just saw one about the kids in Africa, um, that like 80% of all the kids, I think under 20 or something like that in Africa, can't even like read a full sentence and can't interpret a full sentence and write one. Of course, they can talk to each other, right? Because that's culturally, I mean, sure. But when you talk about things like that, like, um, it's usually like, oh, it sounds ridiculous. It must just be an Africa thing. But no, we're getting kind of dumb in the world. And I think that does come with automation. Um, it's kind of like when you take away your purpose, right? Then you start to just not use those pieces of your brain, and then you don't remember them. That's why we learn all these like calculations and calculus and algebra, and then you don't use them every day, so you forget them, which is natural because why would you remember something you never use, right? Um, that's kind of where um, I know I'm getting off a little tangent already, but knowledge. In my last video, I explained that like you really only know things that are right directly in front of you, things you experience, right? And I don't mean they always have to be physically in front of you. I use kind of like the idea of a perception of the world around you, right? And I say things like, and this guy in this video that I'm going to share, so hold on, I'll get to this, um, is that you know when people are looking at you without knowing it, right? There's like this sense data that you get from the world. And I think it's really like this mystical thing. And I know my last video, just please go watch that. It's about knowledge. But in that video, I talked about flat Earth a little bit. And I said the reason why I like that topic, this topic, flat Earth, is that people are asking questions based on things they've been told. Okay, so no one, it's not like we would have asked these questions um, and challenged it if there wasn't already that narrative pushed down upon people, right? So you say, hey, so, and this is the problem is that we go to NASA for the major answers about the world, right? And they'll say, okay, Earth is this far away from the moon's this far away from the sun, we're spinning this fast through space, we're doing all this. And they'll give us these things that you can't prove in reality, right? And everybody just believes that, oh, it's peer reviewed. And I'm like, okay, good, logical fallacy, right? It's um, consensus driven results, right? So you can just get a bunch of people together. Well, if a bunch of people, I mean, and I'm jumping through this real fast because I don't want to waste too much time, but like really, if a bunch of people deciding on something makes it real, like them publishing it in a book, then it's the same thing as saying that the bad, I don't can't say the word for censorship, but the bad German people from World War II were right, right? That means they were right because there was a large consensus of people who did something and they agreed with it. And if you agree with consensus driven fact without any proof, then okay, you're on the side of those people too. Like you have that same mentality. So asking something isn't a problem. I don't know why it's a huge conspiracy. I I do think there's that separation line. I get it. I get it. You want to fight against the guy because he a flat earther who truly believes it 100%. Okay, and they're going to take that strong position, and then you're going to say, well, we got all this stuff about the globe we know, right? You're going to hold it up higher. Problem is that you don't know that stuff, right? Like like really, with a large population, people doesn't know. I don't mean like a lot of people knew they forgot it. Like we don't know these things. You're told these things. And so if you're going to argue, these are really, really good philosophical ways to argue is flat Earth because the globe Earth has not been around for that long. Um, even the globe, the way they're drawn, they draw Alaska like super small in the upper left side of like North America, and the thing's freaking ginormous, right? They draw Australia as this little blob on the bottom right side of the world map if you get a flat one, right? Or even if it's a globe, and it's like it's not to scale. Let's just say that it's not to scale. And there's even sometimes where they'll tell you, like if you really look into it, they'll be like, well, this kind of is actually kind of like twisted this way slightly. Then you're like, well, what the heck's going on with that? Why don't we draw it the way it is? And it's like it's not commercially viable, maybe, or something like it looks uglier than the globe today. I don't know. There's there's a lot of things like this. I use clouds, for example, right? Everybody, because people be like, "Oh, Greg, you don't know what a cloud is," and then you dig in deep, and then it finds out that scientists have all these facts they'll give you, all these facts, but at the very end they'll say, "Yeah, we don't really understand it because there's 100 ton a cloud that weighs 100 tons by their calculations. They can't physically, and how does it stay up and not rain down? Okay, how can it stay up in the sky? Um, does pressure hold up 100,000 pounds or 100 tons or whatever it was, or 100 elephants? I forgot the weight measurement, but it's on the videos. Just go look them up. They're on all these videos. You really need to learn this. That's another thing about knowing too, is like I can say all this stuff on these videos, and then it's like I'm not a walking database. All right, I'm not like a robot. I can get little details wrong. You're gonna argue with me on the slight minute details. We could do that, but I'll just go look it up and say, yeah, but the idea of what I'm saying is right. Okay. Um, anyway, so like the Africa kids thing with whatever percentage I said couldn't read, right? And then you might say, oh, well, it said 75%. Okay, I was a couple percent off, but the problem is people are getting dumber, okay, or stupider, or more dumb. Anyway, however you say that. So I do want to do this the right way because there's a lot of talk about people reviewing other videos right now, and one of the biggest issues is that they're not giving credit or they're not adding enough substance to these talks. So I really didn't go through the way I wanted to, is like mark timestamps to jump to kind of really hit on the high points of this video. It is 51-minute video from about flat earthers. They're interviewing a guy named Apollos. It's really great. This channel is called Soft by Underbelly. You can see it. Um, they do great work. I've been watching them for years. I think it's one of those YouTube channels that kind of like blows under the radar. So if anything, this is like advertisement for them. I would tell you immediately subscribe to them. But what you're going to find, and which is why it's really interesting, is interviews with real life people. Do it through real life things in their life. Okay, so uh, usually it's like drug addicts, and they'll just be candid, right? They'll talk about such like I don't know, they'll talk to like murderers, anything. I'm just trying to watch out what I say for YouTube, but there's tons of stuff on there that they will talk to people about, and there's a lot of really cool things you can just learn, and then even just go watch like they have a couple videos on like fentanyl um, addictions and things like that, and just really learn the perspective of the people that are addicted to these drugs. They dig in deep. Sometimes you find a lot of trauma, and then it's really easy to say that trauma creates drug addicts, but I don't know if that's always yeah, I don't know if that's absolutely the truth, but you can see it, right? You can kind of see these patterns with all these videos, but they upload quite a bit. This is the first one I've seen of flat Earth, and I think it's really interesting. They do. I'll get to it right now. It bugs me about this video is that if he was just talking about flat Earth, I was kind of thrown off. Why would you do that? I usually talk about deeper things like molestations that led to people doing drugs, and then they actually do that in this video. So he must have known the answer beforehand or something, because it feels like this is set up a bit to where he does talk to this guy, and eventually this guy is super energetic the whole interview. It's awesome to watch. This guy's got tons of great energy. If you read the comments from the video, it's just everybody loves what this guy's saying, and I do too. It's just I could watch this like once a week maybe, or listen to it. Right? Sorry. But anyway, he eventually talks about some childhood trauma, briefly, very very briefly, and then they kind of like it's kind of like a lot of people in the comments put it together too, right? Because I see that that's where they were trying to go with it, is say like, oh, does he only believes in flat Earth because he went through this. Um, gosh, I gotta watch what I'm saying on YouTube, and I hate it so bad. Um, but he's going through this bad trauma in his life. And they say because of that, he doesn't like authority. Because of that, he pushes against the globe model, etc. I'm like, no, look, I haven't ever had anything bad happen to me. I don't know. Maybe it's in the back of my head somewhere or something, and I buried it. I have never had a reason to believe there's anything wrong with my life. And a lot of the people I know too. And the more you look into flat Earth, right? Because usually here's how it works. Oh, let's do this. Here's how it works, and he'll say it too in the video. And so I don't know if I'll get to it because I'll jump around. Like I said, I want to drive you to this content. I don't want to um, exactly do the whole video. I think that's wrong. But some of the things he says, I want to say, look, hey, if this is what flat Earthers believe, then maybe I'll add to it a little bit. Uh, oh, gosh, what else would I say here? Yeah, I think first you start debunking it. That's what you search out to do, right? So that's what I did. I remember years ago, when it really got big, like Jaron. Jeranism, and then I forgot his friend's name, but they have the Flat Earth app that they made. But man, I watched, dang, what's his name? David. That's coming to me slowly. But hey, just go look up Flat Earth videos. Jeranism has probably the best ones. Don't, when you search, you'll see people like Professor Dave and a bunch of these other people, and they're really not deep thinkers. They just regurgitate like a Google search, right? Like, and I mentioned this in my other video. If you ask a scientist guy about like clouds, like you're going to debate him about clouds, he's just going to bring up Google. And if you're like, how do clouds stay in the air? He's going to go, how do clouds stay in the air? And then he's going to read the answer that Google gives. But it defies logic, which is why they're still studying clouds. And that's the whole point is like, if these were the definitive answers and they could be checked and double checked and proven in a real life situation, I wouldn't be asking about it, right? I wouldn't have been like, oh, why do they stay up? That doesn't make sense. Chase down this fourth phase of water thing. Anyway, we get started here. I'll just play a little bit of it, and then sorry if my eyes jump around a lot, but um, try to stop at good points. But I think it's important to see the first part. Here we go.
What if it's true? I mean, what if? And so I started investigating it, and then it was, yeah, like basically no brainer.
And
Like,
you're convinced the Earth is flat.
oh, 100%.
Really?
100%. No doubt whatsoever.
All right. So
Yeah, 100%.
where do we start with
Yeah. So
this?
listen how this starts a little bit.
I
Watch.
mean,
What's this?
planets are round. You look at all the planets, the other
Well,
planets.
planet, the term planet.
Okay, so he gets into this. All right, I'm just because I don't. This part's what he says here is nonsense, but what I think is really important for you to do if you're gonna debate flat Earth is look it up a little bit. This is how we all started, right? I mean, I heard about flat Earth and I'm like, the Earth is flat. Is everything else a sphere? Is everything else a circle? And they spend a lot of time on this at the beginning, but that's because this guy's really ignorant to what the flat earthers believe. And if you if you go look up pictures of like flat Earth and stuff, people draw it flat, like a pizza box sitting on top of like a turtle and all these weird things. They're trying to like make fun of it. And I think it's ignorant to do that when you haven't ever even really tried to find out like because it's any argument, right? You have to find out what people actually believe and get on the same page. And I mentioned this in my other video about knowing things. You have to get on the same page of knowing. And once you both agree where you're at, then you debate it, right? Then you can say, okay, let me attack that. All right. The problem that I found, and a lot of people have seen this, especially if you watch a lot of the Jaren, go to Jarenism, you'll find a lot of this stuff. Um, they will point out these things that can't be debunked. I mean, they defy the story that NASA initially put out, right? So NASA will say like, "Oh, this thing means that this happens," and then they'll go out and observe with your own two eyes this real knowing, right? Like you've been told it for years, but actual knowing. They look up at the sky and they say, "How is the moon lit by the sun if the sun's on the other side of the earth? And then how does it eclipse it when it's a full moon when it's on the other side?" He'll get to this too, which I guess I'll skip it because I just said it. But there's things about the world that when you're told something, you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But remember where there was a eclipse a while back? Not the last one that was weird and went across the wrong direction. There's another one prior, and I can't remember the year. Years I'm so bad with because time flies. But there was a time when the eclipse happened twice or in two places. I think it was right. Anyway, there was some time where the clip, but they have a clip from this NASA head person, right? And he gets on camera, and so he's on camera. And he goes, "Oh, that's because the moon revolves around the Earth two times per day, right?" And you're like, "Wait, what? Like, hold up, full stop, pause." I thought it was a one for one kind of thing, right? Like it's a cycle. But apparently it goes around twice a day. I don't know, just according to a dude that works or not. And so when they tell you these things that are like, you know, not true, um, contrary to everything you know, based on what they've told you, now you've got these inputs coming in. So then the only thing left to do is walk outside and review it yourself. And when you view it yourself, you're gonna go, oh, that's weird. It's different. So this guy is he does this thing, this noise thing. You're gonna hear it here. I want you to hear it. I was gonna make like a short clip cut, but I'm so lazy and I work a lot. Anyway, I don't think it's worth the time because I don't really make fun of him. I think it's kind of like it's just an interesting little like big thing he has. He goes, "What about this?" Like, watch.
It
Well, it's not
actually
one of them.
means moving
It's one.
star. That's where we came up with the term planet. So we are, and I don't definitely don't think we are a planet. We are a plane of existence. So when you say planet, like in the old times or hundreds of years ago and thousands of years ago, they've always
It's
said
got a lot
planets
of
were those stars that move. So there's
He
7 or
definitely
8,
knows
9. I
a
think
lot,
there are
right?
9 now, but anyway, Jupiter, Saturn, all that. And but to our eyes, they look just like all the other stars. They just happen to be the ones that move. So that's where we came up with
But
that term planet.
Saturn,
Wait,
Mars,
oh,
Pluto,
come on.
they're
He just
all
says it so easy.
the enormous mass and the gravity that's involved
That's what our science tells us.
has made them round.
Right. Our science says that they're round.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they. Okay. So let me say it like this.
Okay, can be observed in reality, by the way. Um, just based on all things I've seen with flat Earth debates and all that, is that there's so much gravity that pulls into a sphere. All right. Um, it's the same thing, kind of as a cloud example that I have in my other video, because you know that's what made me question it at first, because you say that all these clouds like absorbed each other. You can actually have two different kinds of clouds that like pass on and over and on and like through each other and things like that, and they don't like combine. So you can see it when there's a storm, right? It's like a storm cloud, and then you'll see like a different colored cloud, and there's all kinds of names for clouds. But anyway, this is basically it. Like, why would the dust form into one planet here, and then the dust over here forms to this planet? Like, how did the mass know where to build up at? And then, are you trying to say it all built up here, but there was too much and it pushed each other away? But wait, mass comes in, it doesn't push out. Anyway, yeah, but this guy knows a lot. And so all these things I've looked up too is like I don't have a definitive stance on this. I would, I anyway, we'll keep going.
Conceptually, they're a ball, but to our eyes, they're just a circle. It's just like the sun and the moon. I believe they're all the same. And I definitely don't think that those planets, those moving stars that we're talking about, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, etc., they all have their own lights. They all have their own energy. They're not reflecting the sun's light. Just like I don't believe the moon's light is not the sun's light. A lot of people think that, but just because science taught you that. But
Yeah. Oh man, horrible place to stop this guy. Oh
I,
wait, here he
So
goes. Watch,
the
hold on.
light of the moon comes from
its own light. Yeah, it's its own light.
it's internal.
It's whatever. We don't know where it. I don't know. That's what I would like to investigate. Those are
So see, here's another thing, and Jaron brings this up, so I tell you to go watch his channel and other flat earthers too. Is like, actually, I don't know how many other flat earthers there are that aren't kicked off of YouTube already. I think Jaron plays it pretty safe. So anyway though, I'll say this too, is that this guy is saying this. It's like we don't have to prove. Like I'm gonna take the position of a flat earther, right? If I tell you, hey, I'm going to do a study, which they have. This is okay. This is real. They took a study of the moon light and they can see that it's giving off like cold light or something like that, right? They've done like these studies. So the light is not from the sun. It's actually from the moon. Like that's like the biggest, this big like revelation people have had, right? And even when you talk about where's the sun and where's the moon, and they see the light from the moon illuminates everything, and there's no way that sunlight is passing through like the earth to touch this moon. Anyway, it really doesn't make logical sense, does it? Like 100%. But the problem is this guy, he doesn't really know, or he does know, the interviewer, and he's nitpicking on it. The thing is that how is this guy supposed to know where the light comes from? Okay, he's using the knowing and the fact that of my whole last video I had about like what you perceive, what you see, how you can test it with the devices that you have in your hand. Everything he's seeing and everything we do to find out about things as a layperson, not people with billions of dollars, rocket ships we say we have. I mean, I put it in quotes because I don't these none of these things I know are actually like real. Like I don't. I've never been to a rocket launch, but I've seen videos of people buy rocket launch. I assume rocket launches are real, but those are all things that like they're steps so far out of the knowing circle around me that I know that it would be safe to say that it doesn't exist unless I see it. Okay, it doesn't, and so it's like that's not real data, but real data is looking at the moon. You see it, you get it, you measure it. If somebody else can show me some other way, but it's not up to this guy to prove where that light comes from. Okay, he would love to, like he said, but that's the problem with being a flat earther from their point of view is every time they say something and they're asked a question, it's always like, well, these scientists said it was so, and they have all these things to study it. Then you're like, yeah, but it contradicts this, and you're like, okay, well then why does it contradict? Well, I didn't make the contradiction rule myself, right? You have the burden of proof on you because it's your model that you're pushing on me, and I'm just trying to ask questions about it. Okay, it's like at work when your boss says, "Hey, you're 1 minute late on your break. You got to back to work," and you say, "Well, does the 1 minute matter?" I was like, the rule is 5 minutes, and it doesn't matter because there's that, anyway, there's just reasons why you could argue that it's the same kind of thing, right? So anyway, but
To the types of questions I'd really like to look into.
And
Um,
but there are times of the night where the half the moon is dark, for example.
exactly. Well, this is
So
the
so there's a
yep.
there's an LED program that makes it turn on the certain
such
parts of the
smart
moon.
ass little
Exactly.
remarks
I'd
that
like
don't
to.
even.
Yeah,
I mean,
let's start with the moon then, right there. It's
how is he supposed to know?
This is some of the things about the moon
You
that
know,
are really fascinating. And to show you that they're
and how
not
do you know?
reflecting the
How do you
sun's
know it's
light
not LED?
is
It's
for
like,
about 3 weeks every month. So 75% of the time you can look up in the sky during the day and see the moon up there with the sun at the same time.
mm,
It's never
it's
full
true.
when it's up in the sky when we see it during the day. Never. The only time it's full is when the sun is set, and then the moon, when it's on the other side of the planet, is the only time you ever see the moon full ever. Okay. So in other words, you never see the moon full at the same reflecting the sun's light ever at the same time. But you see the moon waxing and waning in whatever perigee that it's waxing or waning all the time. And during that day, like say it's a quarter moon, and it's in the sky with the sun. The sun's moving, the moon's moving a little bit, everything's moving, and it never changes its perigee. It's if it's quarter
Mm.
moon, it stays a quarter moon. In other words, that's one little hint to show you that the in the full moonlight. If I put it in the shade,
Go to social gatherings, parties, whatever. Do you advertise? Or do you strike?
it's more like, hey, here's just a few hints, that maybe everything's not the way we've been taught.
Yeah. So this is how flat Earth gets spread around, and it gets accepted by people, and even a little bit at a time. It's kind of like propaganda, if because like they do this with propaganda. I mean, but if I'm at a party and people know I like conspiracy theories, like I worked with these guys for years, right? And they're like, "Hey, Greg's in this conspiracy stuff. He loves talking about that stuff." And then they come up to me and they say, "Hey, what new conspiracies have you heard today?" And they want to, because it's like they're addicted to hearing it, right? And eventually become like you want to take in as much of these conspiracy theories as possible. But it can be dangerous because conspiracy theories can be born in a day, killed in a day. Okay, they have to be like. So I'll tell people like they'll be like, "What do you think about the alien stuff?" I'm like, "Well, since I was a kid, I thought it was kind of real till the government just said it was real. Now I know it's fake, right?" And that's what a lot of people on there are saying too, right? But I always knew that was the next psyop to come out as an alien attack and all that. But um, if that's the playbook, I believe it, right? I just seen so many things. I don't know from where anymore. I can't even tell you, but um, yeah. So now when they're saying like there's like UFOs, I'm like, oh, here we go. But anyway, and I think honestly, I don't go down that road. I don't go that road. Here's this guy, but anyway, what they said at parties. How do are you the person that stands out about flat Earth? Well, and he's saying, hey, you drop nuggets, right? Because sometimes people want to know. They'll be like, hey, do you believe the Earth is flat? And they'll ask, and it comes up quite a bit actually in this day and age. People just bring it up, especially if they know that you are a conspiracy kind of person. They'll come to you and be like, hey, how do you feel about this and aliens and this? But anyway, I tell them about flat Earth all the time. I'm like, there's some weird things, and they always go to the moon landing, and they always say like, well, do you believe the moon landing's real? And I was like, well, I was like, I don't know, but there's a good chance, based on all the things I've seen, that they filmed it in a studio. And I think there's bigger truths to stuff like that, even too. I've never dug into it enough to be able to solidify it somehow, but it's like I think the world's bigger, and I think there are some things that the government has done where they might tell us a little fraction of it. So maybe they showed us this video production of the moon landing, but they might have actually left. I mean, they might have flown into space and then something happened and they're like, we're not showing this raw footage. No way. It's going to be too grainy. Um, we don't know what we're going to see up there. What if we don't want people to freak out, et cetera. And I could see that, right? Because we get that kind of like cover up stuff today, right? The psyops and things happen all the time. Project Mockingbird, Bluebeam, etc. Okay, so they don't tell you what they don't tell you they do stuff, even when they poison populations and um, kill our own citizens, um, and things like that, and hurt our own people, do experiments, stuff like that. They don't tell you till it's like done, like they've already done it, and they're like, okay, here's the death toll for this thing we did. Sorry, and you're like, well, whoa, I would have liked to know ahead of time, but that's the whole thing. They're not going to tell you while they're like trying it out. If it's a huge success, it's a great story, and then if it's not, they kind of like shove it out there, and then it gets buried real quick by the media, and you'll never hear about it again. So. But anyway, all that's kind of conspiratorial as well. But anyway, this guy, yeah, they're talking about how you grab nuggets. Yeah.
Maybe it's not the way you think.
Yeah.
science tries to tell us that we're going around the sun
This-
and the moon's going around us. It looks like, and from our experience, it looks like the sun and the moon are different. They're the exact same size. They have power. We can feel their power. Like if you believe in astrology at all, like all of our ancestors have always believed it. They believe that
Yes, this is what I wonder. But we'll let him keep going real quick. But like when people believe in astrology and the stars in the sky, if you believe we're spinning through space while spinning around the sun, while the moon's spinning around us, and then curving and stuff, why are all the astrology signs perfectly measurable, always in the same spot, literally all the time, right? I mean, the most you can say is when they're like, it takes 5 minutes for the light to reach us from the other galaxy, right? From that star. Okay, so 10 minutes later, that star shouldn't be in that area anymore. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't be able to spin this way and see the star pattern in the sky. It would be like you'd spin and then be like, oh, there it is now. Oh, well, there it is now. Oh, it's forward now. Oh, it would be jumping all around. So like when they tell you that, it's like, okay, if I accept that we're spinning, if I accept what you're saying, then you're telling me the galaxy spins with me too at the exact rate. I don't know what the rate is, but it's the exact same rate all the time, every year, forever. Okay, so the sun's spinning, but then you're saying the galaxy, or whatever you want to call it, the universe is also spinning with it, but they don't say that. That's not part of it. All right. So then they're like, no, 'cause that's ridiculous, because then you couldn't actually be going through space because you'd be anyway. So it's stuff like this that you really, really get
the
into.
sun, the moon, and all the stars, each of the individual stars have their own power. They have their own potency that they're putting in.
Oh, so that last piece of thought I want to say is, do astrology people believe in flat Earth? Because you would kind of have to. Because otherwise, I would go to an astrology person and say what I just said is, how can it possibly be the same mapped out forever and mapped out by people more primitive than we were, right? The Mayans, but they made these calendars that there was like this dial I think they found in Mexico, and you could like spin the dial to any day, right? And it would be like, oh, here's the next eclipse, right? They could look forward like 75 years and there'd be the same comet would come through. They could tell these things were going to happen on an infinite repeating calendar forever. Okay, so never changes. All right, so explain that. But anyway,
Affecting us. So like if you're born on a particular day of the year, okay, that's your sun sign. You're a Gemini, and then the exact day that you're born will know, okay, that's where the moon was in the sky, and then they can take a
yeah,
picture of the entire sky. They know exactly where all the planets were the moment you were born, and that's going to impact your entire life.
right. Yeah, you're a Leo or whatever. Ah,
This
crap.
game
You got advertisements. I'm
you're not
sorry.
ready for.
I mean, do you enjoy being this controversial person at a gathering where you're like to
I castles and cathedrals in Mexico, and then there was 1,000 years of peace. That's what it looks like. As far as like art, when I say looks like, is the
Okay,
history.
he's talking about hidden history. That's a whole other conspiracy theory that there's been mud floods and there's a guy called Jay Jumers. Is his channel called Jay Jumers? Yeah, but he talks a lot about the mud flood and the apocalypse and stuff like that. There's another guy called Archaics that I watch, and he talks about that we're in a simulation basically, but there's a reset. The more important part of that, though, is that there's a reset every 138 years or 183. I think it's 138. Anyway, but go watch his stuff too if you want to kind of get introduction to Archaics. But um, um, he this is what this guy's kind of getting to, that there's been proof, there's things people have seen where there's old buildings where like it seems like the earth just flooded completely over the buildings and then we rebuilt like San Francisco on top of it. And in fact, I mentioned that on purpose because there was like a story where they were digging underneath San Francisco and found like a whole city in some area. um and stuff like that. Like, why doesn't that get the media attention we should focus on? That's why, the world is such like a weird, crooked place. Is we're so focused on like this stupid crap of like, let's go to space, and we focus on that. We show it on videos and stuff. It's like, what about here? What about how mystical and weird this place is? Like, let's worry about this planet, more than anything. We should be sharing resources with every country. We should be helping everybody not starve, right? And I know people could say, "Oh, you're anti-capitalism, right?" I'm not going down that road that hardcore, but I'm just saying that like compared to everything else going on, there's so much we don't know about this planet. It's absolutely insane.
History of our ancestors, not modern day history, but we if we listen to what our ancestors talk about, that's what it says. And then you just look at
Yeah.
the architecture, like I was mentioning that a minute ago. There's these beautiful cathedrals, and
I
but
won't. I
that's
won't get.
but
Let's
it's only
just.
been
I
in the
won't.
last 100 years that they're even teaching people that the world is a globe. It was a
Right.
hypothesis, a theory 500 years ago.
Yeah. So this is another thing too, though. In fact, is people really don't realize that schools weren't standardized with the curriculum until I think it's what? Sorry. Oh my God! I hope that didn't spike back because I'm not editing that out. But I think it's the 1920s. I believe is when the first like standardized school books were put out, and that's when people started teaching certain things, and then it gets really crazy. I'm not trying to say too much here, but there are some other people I follow. There's a guy called Dane Calloway, and he talks about like the hidden history of it's kind of like racism, like not the history of racism, but like black people have been lied to for years. So he's talking about a hidden history as well, where gosh, where was I going with this? Because I was trying not to say racism, because I want people to like go look at it and think I was wrong about it. It's maybe we talk about hidden history, where if you go back in time and you ask like a they were asking old slave how the world was, how they lived, right? And the old slave was like, "Ah, it wasn't that bad. I had to live in this like crappier house on the side, but I ate dinner with the family." And I mean, they like they have like whole entire like different outlooks than everything else painted as a super horror story. And then it's like, well, is it just because those people, maybe you could argue they're alive because they had a good like owner or whatever, and maybe all the other stories they could both be valid, is what I'm trying to say. It could both situations could be valid. It's just that he looks at like this hidden history where like um, once that school system came in 1920s, that it started telling people that they were slaves, and it started perpetuating truths that weren't so true in this book. And then that's the thing again with knowledge, and this is how propaganda works. But that first-hand knowledge, go watch my other video, please, for this, because otherwise you're like, what's this guy stopping for all the time about knowledge? But you don't know these things, and when you're taught these things, I remember he said that he talked to. I think he has a video, one of his oldest videos. He talks to a guy who's a pretty old dude, right? But he's not like he wasn't old enough to be a slave, but he's like the son of a slave, right? And he was like, "Yeah, I came home and told my parents oh, we were all slaves and all this." And his family's like, sounds like, "No, honey, we were born in America. Like this is like our people came from an Indian tribe in America." And it's like, boom, like blows your mind. And he's got some proof on this stuff. But anyway, it's hidden history stuff. The school's teaching it, um, flat Earth and stuff like that. You could really debate. Um, I wouldn't debate that as a point. I just think that it's a good thing to go call out. Go learn about it. Go learn. Just go learn, because I don't know all the details either, right? But I mean, it's like 1920. Look it up when schools first got curriculums.
But even 100 years ago, nobody thought the world was a globe and we're not spinning. We're told that it's been around for 500 years, and everybody knows that. Flat Earth, really? Well, then
That's the thing.
why
He
does the
does it
military,
so
and
much.
even during World War II, I don't know if they have to nowadays.
Watch
There's
it.
no such thing as like if you have a globe, and I want to go from one place to another on the globe. Um, why would I use flat plane trigonometry to get there? Unless we're on a flat plane. On a globe, navigation doesn't work. On a flat plane of existence, everything makes sense. Basically, all of our mysteries, all of the things that what's up with that? It all
Yeah.
makes sense on a flat plane. The moon, I like to do the moon because even modern day scientists have no understand. Like the moon does not fit in with anything else that they've talked about.
Right.
These planets this and the sun's this and Earth's this and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll let him finish
It's
this.
weird. The moon has these weird things about it. I mean, there's like literally like 100 things about the moon that literally don't fit.
Is the moon flat as well?
So what he's saying there goes back to the cloud thing. You could say 100 things about the moon. Every book will tell you where the moon's at, how far away it is from the Earth. But there's just it's like a layout of these facts, and these facts are laid out, and that's it. You're just given, okay, these are the facts. But then, you know, if you were going to go study it, you start asking questions, and they're going to say things like, "Oh yeah, we're not sure why that happens," and you're like, "No, it's weird." Like, okay, so That's what he's bringing up anyway. And then there's another thing he said. What else did he say? I know he got me with that. I keep thinking about that thing that he does. It's pretty interesting.
Well, here's some more things about the moon. From our perspective, some of the things that we notice about the moon is that there are craters on the moon. Like when the moon, let's say it's full. Okay, we're looking
Yeah, I
at
don't
the
like
moon.
that. I
It's
think this
full.
one's kind of
City.
let's get.
He's been a body worker, also a massage therapist.
Okay, this one he talks about his history, and this is where they get to the trauma, right? So you notice they're like 16 minutes in, they get to some trauma. They talk about it. It's fairly brief in the video, but this had all the comments going wild, saying that he was only a flat earther because of the trauma, and that all flat earthers must therefore have had some trauma that caused them to be flat earthers. Um, and then somebody else, I remember there was a comment that pointed out the logical fallacy of that, and that they were like, there's people that were born into poverty. Raped, the YouTube guys, sorry, they were raped their whole life. And then they still grew up and they're like amazing scientists and they founded all these things and saved a bunch of lives. And there's all these success stories from all the movies we watch and stuff, right? These documentaries and autobiographies, biographies, and all these things about all these really neat people in the world. And they're not all perfect either where they start off at. So like there's not that equivalent there where like your background means you're gonna be like a shitty person or an idiot or something like that, right? You always have the chance to do better. And that's kind of what I want to do with my channel is help people get better, get better jobs, get on their feet. I keep hearing about men being lonely these days. It's a huge trend going on, and men don't have friends. It's like, okay, well, let's meet up on here and so usually I've been doing lives. I'm trying to build that up so I can so we have a place to talk and we can help people out, maybe give you that motivation to get a job. And maybe I mean I'm not that great talking to girls. I only talked to one girl ever and I married her, so no, that's just kind of a joke, right? But I'm not a game guy. Anyway, no, there's some things we should help each other out with, and we can learn a lot.
Good childhood though.
My childhood.
I'm gonna skip it. I don't want to.
I
Let's
have
go to.
actually been a customer of BetterHelp for a little over 2 years now, and I was able to get matched up with a therapist. And
I was gonna.
Depend on it. Trust it. Well, another one is water always seeks its own level.
Okay.
It seeks the
Water
horizon.
argument.
You seem very intelligent.
But the curvature
Yeah.
this way, so a lot of people are like, oh, maybe there's a little bit of curvature this way. Okay, same thing like if you look at the pictures, any of the space pictures, they're, oh look, we're at the Hubble telescope, or we're at this, we're looking down, we're at the shuttle going around. With this, what you'll see, you'll always see the Earth and like these big, huge, looks like this giant, like it is a ball. All right, they make it look like it's a ball. But what you see also is that the highest point of that curve, literally, no, whether it's tilted this way or that way, no matter how they tilt the camera, the main apex of that curve is always right at that eye level. So it's showing you, like, literally all science. I mean, all the space, all those shuttle guys in space.
Yeah, I don't think he touches on this the way I would have. I mean, he does a really good job of it, but the thing that I would always point out is they use fisheye lenses. So they're not really being honest when they show a picture. It's weird. It's like, why do you use a fisheye lens? Why can't you just use a normal camera and show me? And maybe it's not as beautiful to see a flat, like non-curved Earth, but even when they get really high up, remember there was like the Red Bull sky jump thing, and the guy like jumped from, he's like in the stratosphere, and they said he was in space. Well, they did such a bad job with like the fisheye lens camera, and it got so attacked by flat Earth people that then later Neil deGrasse Tyson came out, and even he was like, that guy's not in space. He was this far off the globe. He's like this a little bit off the, tiny less than a rice grain off the globe or whatever he said. And it's like, so he wasn't in space, right? And that's what people really need to understand is how um, is that they have to say that, because it's like if we didn't, it feels like if the flat earthers didn't call it out, that they would have rolled with it. And like this is a spacewalk, and they just like Elon, like the space flights with Virgin and Amazon, right? They're not in space. I mean, they go to like a stratosphere that's like safe, but they're not proving space. They're not proving anything about space by going that high, looking down using a fisheye lens that causes the curve. Okay, that's not. It's just not really proof. Okay, so anytime you see a space footage, look for the fisheye lens and just skip it. Okay, because it's not going to prove a curve. All right, and he's even and earlier right here he was talking about airplane windows have like a curve to it because they're made of multiple layers of glass. But I'd rather you go listen to his explanation because I don't want to steal the video.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, or great point. So check this out. I believe that the Earth is flat, like I said. The center of our
It's
plane of
important.
existence is the North Pole. Okay, literally. If you, that's why all of the compasses point north. Doesn't matter how far south you go, all compasses point north. In other words, we don't have a South Pole. There's nothing magnetic down in the south.
Right.
Antarctica, okay, ever, nothing. All compasses point north. That's because we have a lodestone. Our ancestors say there's a giant tree or a giant mountain, all these different
or a
words,
hole
different
in the
cultures say
ground or
different
something.
things, but it's always a magnetic point up there. And the North Star is the one star in the sky that doesn't move. Well, it turns out it's directly above our North Pole. So it's as if, it's like a giant, what they call it, terrarium or whatever, and it's just spinning. So if you go to the North Pole and you do slow motion photography, all the stars are spinning in circles.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Literally,
right?
perfect circles
they don't
around
ever
you.
move.
So we're rotating around the Earth, the sun.
Exactly. I'm proposing to you that the sun and the moon are moving around us, just like it looks like. They are the same size.
And I want to show this. So let's say this is your first time seeing flat Earth map, and I want you to understand this. So basically, where's the? I want to see the best one. This is it, though. Well, I'm gonna click on it. It's a YouTube video. I click image. Why does it show me YouTube videos? Okay. Man, they got a lot. Let's just go. Let's roll this right at the top. Yeah. So here's what he's kind of talking about. This is a little like it's graphical here, adding like that we don't know what's underneath it. Nobody would know. You wouldn't know. Okay, you wouldn't know what's underneath it. But when you are looking at this picture here, this physics world one I brought up to the right side, what he's saying is like you see how it's bright here and bright here. So there's a sun and the moon. They just spin in circles around it. How come I can't find the sun and moon? There's a guy that made it. Oh, there he goes. He made they sell these, I think. You can buy them, but there's the flat earth map. And you can see the sun and the moon where he's got them placed there. So that's the flat earth model right there. That is being currently used today to debunk the shit out of the globe model and really make people ask questions. And it's very interesting because most people think, what's the old? I wonder if there's a picture of like the old flat Earth or flat universe or whatever. Let's do flat universe. Because people were thinking that it was like we had that spinning plane, and then like in the middle of like all these other spherical planets all through the globe. Anyway, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna see it. Okay, like stuff like this, like a picture like that. That's okay. Looks like we might get to it. Yeah, but anyway, it was like a picture like this universe picture, except Earth would be like this square or whatever. And it's like, no, it's like if that's how dumb you think people are, then we can't even have a good conversation, right? Like this is the level of what we would call cognitive dissonance, right? Or what's that one where you think you know everything, and you know nothing? Uh, oh, geez, it'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, you've got a problem. Okay, nobody's this stupid. All right. If you think that that's what it is, if you think it's a square, you think it's a square box, and then everything else is spherical. That's not what flat are saying. So please, that's what I'm saying. We gotta get educated to even have conversations about this stuff. So let's see if we can finish this here.
Not 400 miles further, it's bigger, and 400 times further apart. Nah, it's very much the same. So find the person that's looking at you right away without even
that's just the intuition thing I mentioned in my other video too. Is like you can always tell when people are looking at you. Sometimes you can tell. You get like this feeling if you're like at a grocery store and your friend walks in the door behind you and you like turn around like, oh, and they're like, I know you, hey Frank, whatever. And it's just this weird intuition, but it doesn't have to do with flat Earth technically. But I think they get out of scope here on their discussion. Another ad. I'm not even sure if I'm not sure I'm supposed to cut the ads.
If the Earth is a flat plane, why is the sun rise in Europe 8 to 10 hours before it does in the U.S.?
So what's happening?
Okay.
Is the sun
all right, I'll let you watch the video to get the explanation of the sun rising and falling, but it's really not that hard to figure out once you because like trying to learn about something is you have to accept what people think about it, right? And it's hard to do sometimes, but like if you accept that globe model or the flat Earth model I just showed in the photo, you can kind of like work your way up through that whole idea. Okay, you can kind of say like, okay, well I'm gonna go look at the how would the sun look like when it's here and then here? Like what would be? And I mean, just think it through a little bit, or just watch videos like from Jeranism, where this guy does a really good explanation. But let's just keep going. I don't want to spend a whole
The
lot
Earth
more
is
time.
round.
Right. Well, let's
Yeah,
very
here
advanced
Why,
society.
why is the
here's what
shadow
they
of a
were.
lunar eclipse?
That's a good question. I would really like to know that. I think this is getting to be weird.
It might be
but,
because the Earth is round.
right. Well, let's.
Right. So people were saying there he like got him, like got you, but I would even laugh at that too, because what he's saying, what the thing he's getting to right here in this part is he's like, how is the sun eclipsed if the moon, um, if the moon rotates with it? But then it's like your model doesn't make sense either. Both models don't make sense. They don't. So he goes into this big explanation of it, but it doesn't. There's no way that the moon being full can fully cover the sun if they're on. Remember the beginning what he said. I think I showed that part. If they're only full when they're on opposite sides of each other, right? The moon's only full when it's way over here. So how does it cover a sun here? And that gets the science behind that, and is like they can't explain it, but flat Earth does try to explain it. And the problem is we'll never. I don't think we'll ever know. The archaics guy that I mentioned earlier, they explain it pretty well. That there's like this invisible body on this other like dark. I don't know if they call it the dark sun or something, a black sun, but there's people who believe in that as well. Um, in not flat Earth. Okay, so there's all these different conspiracy things that kind of like merge together. And I think that like learning about flat Earth kind of opens your mind a little bit, even if you disagree with it. You start to understand like why would they ask this question? Oh, because the people that told them something were wrong. Okay, so he goes over a lot of things in here.
Yeah. And how it made me start
Anyway.
thinking about flat Earth was I was like, what? The moon's doing this, and we never see the moon in the sky.
Oh, that's what he's saying was his red pill for it. That's his moment. He was looking into the moon and eclipses and stuff. Yeah, yeah. And the eclipse happened. There was the last eclipse we had went the wrong direction over the Earth as well. It went from west to east, and I think they're supposed to always show up east to west because of the way the moon. Yeah, would it be east to west or whatever, according to science, right? So it would always go this way. Well, I know my camera's different, but anyway, it would go from east to west, but this one went west to east, and or maybe I'm wrong with it, but anyway, it went the wrong way. And then it's like, okay, now explain that on top of everything else that we're already arguing about, right? Flat Earth, Earth globe. Explain now the wrong direction eclipse. All right.
The full moon in the sky, lake, for heaven's sake. I did English as well. As that was
Oh, he's talking about his education. So I kind of feel like this point, I'm not sure if it was an attack on him because he said he was like smart and he seemed to know a lot, and he does. He does. He's very well. This is the thing too, is like if you came up to me at a party and asked about flat Earth, I could end up saying something that's like wrong, right? And that's the problem. Is it again, like I said earlier, you expect the flat earther to have the answer, right? Just because we debunked your answer and then we throw out our hypothesis, right? If I throw out a theory and then my theory is like very sound based on my sight, what I can see, my senses, what I know in front of me, um, and what I know about the world, and then I say, well, it looks like this, and then you're like, explain that. Well, I can't because I don't have $1 billion. I got to go to work tomorrow. Um, I like what do you want from me, right? Like, how are we supposed to do any proving? And then are you going to go to the government and say, I would like a grant, right? We'll get into grants later too. Some video of mine. Let's say, hey, I want a $80 million grant so I can study that NASA's wrong. Yeah, right. Money like crazy from the government. So you'd be asking them to go behind. And so it's like, what's the likelihood of that? But that would prove it, right? Like, we should be able to do these things. Or anytime something's brought up as a challenge, those people that bring that challenge up should be brought into teams with NASA or whoever, whatever space thing or group, and then go determine it and record everything, all the conversations, and have like these uh, really big open debates about it.
a major for a couple
Where'd
years.
you go to school?
It definitely reinforced that idea that everybody's lying.
Right.
I didn't understand it because and we continue on if we all sense that that's wrong. It's just because everybody else is doing it. If that's really that's what I'd ask my mom especially. Why are they doing this, Mom? Like, what the freak? She's like, well, everybody's doing it, so let's just, In other words, if you don't do it, you're going to be ostracized. You're going to be outside the circle. So just come back into the circle. And I realized.
Yeah, so there's a lot of pressure on that too. So when they talk about like I know that earlier it's like, do you like being the guy at the party? He asked him that like is against it, and it's like, no, you don't really like and then that's why I'm hesitant too to say that I totally believe in it because I haven't seen the proof definitively either way, and I would say, okay, I guess I'll just assume it's a globe model because one, it doesn't really matter to me because I already believe that there's like a higher power, that we're special, that this Earth is a special place. It's kind of like a quote magical place. It's so perfect in how it's made, all the synchronicities. Um, each little thing in the world, like you look around you, like like it's like, okay, you see spiders in your house and you kill a spider. But what was a spider's job to do, right? He was going to catch the other insects that are in your house, okay? And they don't even try to bite. Like the spiders don't want to bite you. They just start walking around, and in your sleep, you might roll and hit one, and they bite you because you slammed your arm on them, whatever. So there's a lot. I know a lot about spiders. I was looking them up a lot one time because I thought I found a brown recluse, so I learned everything about spiders I could in like a week. I just stayed up, just massively consuming spider information and videos. Hopefully that blocked you from audio like that. But I sorry, I had to do that. I was like holding it some um but yeah, anyways, so the spiders are supposed to kill the other insects, right? And then you see an ant. And what's the ants do? Well, they pick up the carcasses and they keep the world clean. So the ants are cleaning the world. But this is like me. This is like the smallest scale possible I can explain to you that there's a harmony in the way the world works, right? Um, bees, you need bees for honey. Like that's what they do is they go get honey, but the bees pollinate. And there's other animals that pollinate things. So there's a plant. Here, I'll take this a second because I found this out the other day, but like um, there's a plant that's like more Colorado area, and I'm in the Midwest, and they grab the plants called the yuccas, and I think it's a cool plant. I like how it seeds and everything is really unique looking. But when they had brought several yuccas back that they bought, and when I went to go get it, because hey, I'll plant these yucca seeds in my yard. I might as well throw some in my yard. I like these things. We'll see how they grow. And I go to grab the seeds and notice a hole in them. Anyway, there's a caterpillar in it. When I open it up, there's a larva that's attached to the caterpillar. And I open it up, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this tiny caterpillar. What is this? I've never seen this caterpillar before. And then you look it up and you're like, hey, here's a plant where there's a caterpillar called the yuccas caterpillar. The yuccas moth is what it is. But this caterpillar is the whole entire life cycle is based on just that yuccas plant. All right. So maybe they can do their life cycle with other plants, but they are specifically known to just pollinate, feed off of, and help propagate that yuccas plant. All right. So I don't know anything else about yuccas. I'm sure there's something else to it because that's such a it's a perfect infinite system, right? And they where they and then they said, well, do they propagate themselves? No, one yuccas plant needs another one, right? So these moths specifically are born, raised, turn to a moth, and then fly to another yuccas plant a couple blocks away and pollinate that one, mate with the moths there, and then the cycle goes on. Okay. And things like that are such a perfect circle of life um, that I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to look in this later. So I like wrote a note about it on my whiteboard, but it's like, really, really have to find out what's going on with that. Anyway, it's another example of the perfect way this world is, and it's insanity for me to think that we're just a random digit on a statistics sheet floating through space. Yeah.
Realized when I started becoming more spiritual, that led me into flat Earth. Once I saw the Earth was flat, then I started believing in God again. There
Yeah.
has to be something going on here because it's too perfect. It's too.
Okay, so I won't let him rehash what I said, right? Let him say it. You really got to watch this. This guy's watch the whole thing. He's energetic, and you're gonna really enjoy it. But um, yeah, I think I was already kind of semi-religious. I was religious, whatever. I believe there's, like I said, I see the magical of everything and how perfect everything is with itself. But a lot of times people will say, why would they hide that we're on a flat plane? And this is it, because there's something more to it. And if you think that you are a digit on a sheet, you're just another cog in the wheel. You don't have a soul. Your life means nothing. You're just a computer, a walking machine. Things like that. You're taking you're they're taking the pieces of you that would otherwise be like angelic and breaking it all the way down to just you're just a walking corpse basically. You're just waiting to die, right? And there's nothing special about you. And then that I think that breeds like depression. If people don't feel they're important enough. I mean, anyway, there's just so many roads you can go down with that, but that's really what most people say is the reason why they hide it because they have something else to hide. But it starts with flat Earth. It starts with understanding that maybe even if flat Earth is wrong, we're not in a sphere floating through space. Let's just start like it's not the way they're saying it. That's the idea, right?
too orderly, and
Let me,
boom, they're immediately shut off. They're ridiculed, or they're killed, or their family members, or something.
Does a flat plane decide to speak up?
Exactly. Exactly. And if they do,
Interesting.
potency. Yeah, I like to show that anytime anybody sits down with me, is I can demonstrate, feel this energy. Not even touching you. I'll just move my hands around you. You will feel it.
Yeah, we have energy. We have,
And yeah,
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like if that's the one thing, if I could just
agree
teach
with
that,
that.
people have asked me that. What would you do if you had a billboard? No, it's just our
Mm.
heads can be deceived. You've heard the quote, the statement that we only use 10% of our brain. Scientists now, I just heard this a couple days ago. Scientists now are saying we only use about 1% of our brain. All right. Well,
Mm.
where's the rest of it? That's the part that I want to get a hold of. Is the other 99% of.
I don't believe that, by the way. I don't believe that whole 10% of our brain thing. I think I get what they're trying to say. Hey, there's like untapped potential, but I think the whole purpose of the brain isn't, I mean, it just matters how they're measuring it. I think one guy was measuring it like the pulse, like when you had a thought, they're doing like what is it, EEG, and they were checking like the electric signal from the back of your head to the front and like how often like the size and the distance it would travel and things like that. And they're saying, oh, largely your brain's not doing anything. But I thought that, and now here's why science is so crazy right now in this world, is that thought the brain flaps, the folds in your brain, are what really mattered to intelligence because that means that your brain folds every time it's like that. It's like so much like it's kind of like a data bank, right? But it's like stretched and then it has to fold in on itself the more and more you learn because you're layering on knowledge and experiences and memory, and which makes sense because it's kind of like if it, there's memories you lose. There's things that are maybe they're folded so deep you can't. I mean, it's just. But see, the brain is. They don't know. We don't know everything about the brain anyway. But I don't agree with the 1% thing. And
Of
if it is, that's nuts.
our brain. I'm changing it. It's just because I took some scales off of your eyes and removed some of the obstacles to your body to my
Yeah.
head and putting it together. But when I'm out, is your legs going to stop hurting? You're going to be able to walk straighter. You're going to have more confidence, and you're going to.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and end this, but I would tell you to go to the Software Underbelly page, and I will link it in the description. But they've got tons of things to watch here, and I hopefully they're not too mad that I took this, but I mean, just look at the photos. You can see people are interviewing here, and it's very interesting because you learn so much from all of this. Anyway, so what do you think about that flat Earth stuff there, right? Do you think we're Gosh, I don't know. I don't know. How do you think about it? I know a lot of people that would see this, and it's a really good introduction, actually, to flat Earth. I think this guy spells things out very well. Watch the whole thing, learn from it, see where he's really excited about things. And then the thing about it is, when he doesn't know the answer, he says, I would love to know that. I would love to study it. I would love to, but they don't study it because they don't care. Just like the cloud thing in my last video, they don't care. They just know they learn this knowledge up to a certain point and they just stop. It's like we say, hey, that's enough. Just like the oceans, right? They say the oceans, we know like less about the oceans or more about space than we know about the oceans, right? And it's like, why? Like, how is that possible? Okay, so, but then you're asking questions like, wait, so the pressure under the sea is too much, but going through a bunch of atmospheric conditions and flying into space and landing on a different planet, that's doable, right? I don't know. I think we have the ingenuity um to get down the ocean. Anyway, things like that just make you think all the time. I'm just watching for time, and I'm right about 1 hour. I really appreciate the time you spent watching this video. You can follow me on Twitch, on YouTube, and um, I don't know if I'm on TikTok all the way yet, but I'll eventually get there just because there's a large platform of people. But yeah, we'll continue with other things. I was really wanting to help people with jobs and interviews, so my next video should be about interview prep and some information like that, so I can switch gears a little bit. But yeah, please let me know how you like this. Like, subscribe. Help me out, grow my channel, share it with your friends. I know YouTube's gonna ask you after you watch it, like a couple days later, what you felt about it. Give me some good scores. I appreciate it. But please also write in the comments. Ask me a question. Tell me how you felt about the video. You think I won't reply? I will 100% reply until the point where I have like 1,000 people commenting. That might be tough. But for now, you can definitely get a one-on-one contact with me, and we can talk about some of these things. And I even invite you on, or make a video that responds to your responses if it warrants that. So again, thank you very much, and have a good one.